institutions like KISA putting together ICT working groups that will be focusing on fintech, because they've also realized that this is growing, this is here to stay. It involves a lot of industries, and it also involves a lot of regulators. Unfortunately, in the current regulatory landscape in South Africa, we actually don't have one single regulator that is looking after fintech. So that in itself is presenting some challenges, because as you have seen, government has also put together an intergovernmental working committee that includes SAP, FSTA, and FICA. So it is on that basis that we find ourselves, particularly yourself as business, and also ourselves as compliance and regulatory people, in this space where we have to navigate very quickly. So I think before we take it off, maybe just to the floor, Isaac, if you may, Adrian, before we bring in Julius, what is your understanding of fintech? We just a basic understanding of what fintech is.
Isaac speak. So from my side, my understanding of fintech is just rendering of financial services using computer-based programs and different technologies. And if you look at fintech, it's an industry where there's lots of growth. It creates an opportunity to small organizations to introduce new financial products. But as you have alluded earlier, the biggest challenge is that we don't have a dedicated regulator governing fintech. So it's governed by various regulators. So in simplest term, fintech is just a rendering of financial services using computer-based and other different technologies.
Yeah, I think one could explain it like that. Adrian, your take on this
new... I couldn't have said it better. So the focus really is basically that the financial services are being provided using the latest technology. So any kind of device or computer system, and this would include our mobile platforms. So we're talking about mobile service providers, especially devices, those infrastructures would comprise fintech.
Okay, thanks for that. And from a business perspective, Dobeko, you have been, as someone who's been and practicing both of these industries, I think in the financial services and also within the technology space. What would you say, are the benefits of fintech, the future, just generally your thought process, and the benefits that can be realized by government, by business, government, and us as compliance people?
Yeah, thanks, Khaladi. I think I'd like to start with the benefit being for the consumer, and then work my way all the way up to business. I think for the consumer, as we know, even for globally, especially in emerging markets, the level of financial literacy and formal inclusion into the financial services is very low. And that's as much true in South Africa, even though we are definitely up there with the best, if the best, in terms of financial controls and the maturity of financial systems. A testament to that is we have the highest insurance penetration rate on a GDP level in the world, sitting at 14 to 15%. So insurance or financial services are well developed in this country. But tapping into the informal markets has proven difficult. Even sophisticated banking and financial institutions such as we have here in South Africa. Testament of that is we have 11 million unbanked or underbanked South Africans. Our stokvel market turns over 50 billion rands a month in informal savings that's kept in people's houses. So there is an opportunity there, or at least there's an indicator that the formal solutions are not, the formal traditional solutions, established incumbents, are not working for the consumer. And we are hoping then as fintechs, we will have that agility to respond to that need and address pain points or the challenges that the consumer has with the existing financial service providers. And that could be anything from just access, finding an ATM, finding a branch, is a big inhibitor. The fact that these institutions are also intimidating with their sophisticated paperwork, application processes is also something that fintechs are able to address. And then maybe a third point, simply the cost of conducting these transactions is actually an inhibitor in itself. And I think fintech providers or even MNOs or telcos are ideally positioned to answer all of those 3 points for the customer. And then obviously by doing that, we will attract customers, we bring monies into the economy, government benefits, and ultimately us as service providers would benefit from providing that service. But I think that the best way for fintechs to think about this is solving the consumer problem, and everything else is almost a foregone conclusion in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, from what you're saying, Julius, the benefits are really immense. And I mean, from a socio-economic perspective, from also giving access to the unbanked and the underserviced in this country is definitely, the reason why fintech has now become the buzzword. So in terms of, you have shared with us what the benefits are. What sort of challenges, from your working experience, do you foresee or are you experiencing with, fintech?
Yeah, I think because South Africans are, I suppose, very set in their ways, and anybody, especially when it comes to money, are very set in their ways. There's a hurdle that you have to overcome in convincing somebody who was handling cash and now convincing them not only to go into an established financial system, but to leapfrog straight from cash to digital engagement. It's a big ask. So there's an educational element that's required to build trust. That yes, you can trust me with your money, but I'm not necessarily a bank. I can actually be better. Touching on the 3 points that I've mentioned, I can give you better access, I can give you better cost, and I can probably give you better services. So taking people on that journey is going to be quite important as a hurdle to overcome that hurdle. I also think from a regulatory perspective, you guys have touched on this. Government regulators have not really applied themselves enough about how they treat this fintech. So they apply the same banking rule to this fintech space, which is fair because their duty is to regulate and protect the industry and the customer. But then some of the rules are the ones that cause these distortions that customers don't like. So there's still something done that customers don't like. They also build in costs into this whole transaction. So there's still some work to be done from that perspective. And I would say probably for me, those would be the biggest challenges. Technology is no longer the challenge anymore. There's very smart platforms that can do this in a very cost-effective way. So just dealing with the education of the customer and also creating the right rule for fintech is probably the two hurdles I think the industry needs to address.
There's something also that I think that the regulators, because they haven't done a whole lot of research and they don't really understand the fintech environment away from the traditional methods using technology as it is today, they are trying to apply the same old rules that they used to in
Yes.
the old world, and it's much too restrictive, and it's very difficult for us. It has been very difficult for us to convince them that the old rules don't really apply anymore, and we
Yeah.
have to open up using technology to broader range of customers, and
Yeah.
they have to deregulate to a certain extent for us.
So, do you not see, Adrian, the establishment of the intergovernmental committee as maybe a first start in
Yes.
terms of a response from government to say, we do realize that this is new, and we are setting up an intergovernmental committee, to assist the industry. Would you say that that is the beginning?
Yes, very much so. And I think it's a very good start. And I must tell you that I think that our engagement with some of the regulators, including the SARB, the PA, the FIC, the NPS, the FSCA, MTN and Ubank together, I think we've already started creating some kind of an awareness. So we've definitely made some contribution. And this is uh, uh, this new establishment of an intergovernmental body, or even just a committee, is a very good start for us to be able to communicate the requirements as they stand now.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that is a good start. So, now speaking to my compliance colleagues, who are the main regulators in this space, and what do you think so far the regulators' response has been to fintech, particularly in South Africa, and perhaps maybe touch to say in any other country, how have we seen governments respond to fintech, and how have other governments supported fintech?
So I can't really talk to the other countries in even in Africa, but we've got FACE, we've got the FIC, we've got the STAR PA, and then we've got the various financial market regulations, and we've got
Mm.
COPY. All of these guys are regulators in the financial services space. My experience with, in particular with the FACE and with the SARB PA, has been that they are very nervous. They are really scared that if they accommodate change from the old way of doing things, that our banking sector is going to be compromised in South Africa. So I think that this intergovernmental body will go a long way, but it's going to take a lot of time to set their minds at ease and to show them that we are responsible individuals. MTN is not the cowboy they think we are. We want to safeguard the financial sector. We want to follow required rules, but we don't want to do it in the same old, very restrictive fashion that we used to.
Mm. No, Isaac, do you want to come in there as a compliance person on a day-to-day basis, being pulled into this space?
Yeah,
What do you think? Who are the main regulators? Who have you interacted with? What has your experience been like?
okay. So in terms of the main regulators for governing the fintech in the South African market, there's the South African Reserve Bank. I know the South African Reserve Bank, they've been busy engaging with most of the financial institutions where they are developing governance framework to regulate things like Bitcoin. And if you look, we've got the FSCA, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. So one of the greatest initiatives in the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, which KISA, the Compliance Institute of South Africa, is doing, is that they are starting a forum where they will be discussing all the fintech issues, fintech challenges. And the greatest thing is that MTN is going to be part of those conversations with KISA and the FSCA. And also another third regulator which governs fintech is the National Credit Regulator, but they have not yet been actively involved from a National Credit Act. So it's one of the regulators which will need to work closely with the South African Reserve Bank, more especially the Prudential Department. And also in terms of from a POPI perspective, because fintech also covers lots of personal information. So the information regulator will need to chip in into this process. So there need to be integration which needs to happen from all these various regulators, from the South African Reserve Bank, the Financial Intelligence Center, and the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, and the NCR. So from the regulatory compliance perspective, I think we are at a better position to start the engagement with the Compliance Institute and have this tight relationship where we can influence the regulator by when they're busy drafting these new regulations to govern the fintech space here.
No, yes, you are correct. And I think it's actually great that we have a body like Compliance Institute that has really seen the need and have actually set up these forums within, its structures to accommodate and to also actively engage. And what's good about these forums that they have put together is that they are not only exclusive to compliance people. So, there's different levels of participation that people can get into. At this time, I would like to bring our insurance people from the insurtech space. There has been a lot of challenges when it comes to a non-traditional company and also operating within the financial services tech sector. So Mfari, if you can just come in there to just share with us what your challenges has been, and also how have things been running insurance within a non-traditional financial services company. Mfari?
We can't hear you, Mfari.
I think she must be on mute. Yeah, but then I think as we are waiting for Mfariseni to come in there, Adrian, in terms of what Isaac has just now shared with us, do you concur with some of the things? And in terms of where the regulators are moving to, do you think that they are moving into the right space?
Yes, I do think so, but I don't have a lot of time left, and they take a long time. They mustn't take years.
True. Yeah, that is absolutely true. They actually do take a lot of time, and the developments are moving at a far faster pace, than they are. So I think with that being said,
just on that, I do think that they're starting to move now. I do think that they are coming to the party, and they're realizing that they have to adapt. So I think we'll pick up momentum. I'm not really that negative.
Yeah, but we think, you see, for me, the intergovernmental working group is a start. And as I'm saying, we actually also have very active bodies like KISA who are actively engaging the regulators. Because what KISA is also trying to do is to say, how do we prepare business and how do we prepare compliance people for this new working order? Because every compliance person will ultimately find themselves within the space. And also, as I indicated earlier with insurance also, I think the same thing will also apply, because we have seen from FSCA where they have made certain, they have relaxed some of the regulations for non-traditional financial services providers. So they have done, there's some interventions definitely that are coming through from the FSCA, where they are starting to understand that the landscape in terms of their regulatory space is expanding, and that there are more players within that space, and those players may not necessarily be traditional financial services company.
So I think, sorry to interrupt you. So I think from that perspective, it's very important for this committee to communicate all of these changes that are happening so that we're all aware. Because
Yes.
you're using terms that I've never heard of. There are bodies that exist that are doing something that I don't even know about. So
Yeah, yeah.
this forum is going to be
No,
good.
yeah, definitely. And I think also with KISA, it's something that they have started now. But I think it is precisely for this reason to say, let's bring people together and information be shared. And I think they'll also be sharing information on their website, on linked, and things like that. And it is precisely for this reason to say there is some work that is being done, and they've also been actively engaging. So, Julius, from your side, before we wrap up, what is your final message to compliance people? What would you like to see? What sort of support is required from regulators, from compliance people? A penny for your
Yeah,
thoughts there.
I think it's some of the elements that Adrian touched on.
Yeah.
If I could maybe phrase it differently, is let's not fear. Um, let's not fear to go forward into new frontiers. Let's embrace technologies, because ultimately they can be used to further the advancement of financial services, the betterment of lives across all of these services, whether it's transactional banking, savings and investment, insurance, and even other services in the financial space that we have not thought of that can be enabled by such things. Think of the utility of blockchain and Bitcoin, as Isaac has touched on. Yet, with that said, I do encourage them also to be as prudent as they've been, to make sure that the customer is protected, that
Yeah.
protected, the consumer is educated, and the consumer is empowered. That would be my cry to our regulators, to have no fear, but do their job and to do it well.
Now, thanks for that. Guys, thank you so much for your time. We will be inviting you and pulling you in as we go along the journey. This is the first of many. We'll be bringing in different content, and we will obviously like to take you, along this journey. Adrian, do you have any final remarks? And Isaac?
Well, I'm very happy to be involved. I think the more frequently we can get together, the better. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yes. Isaac?
I think for me, the last thing it will be from a regulatory compliance perspective, we need to continue to be proactively engaged. We need to continuously engage with our regulators to ensure that we get new, fresh amendments in terms of the regulations which will be governing fintech, so that we can advise business speedily while certain things are still new.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's really
Thank
been
you.
really fun and exciting chatting to you and seeing everyone under lockdown. But you
It's
still
nice to
look
see
clean,
you
eh?
guys. This was the first time I used the video and I could see everybody. That's really good.
It's
It's good.
actually
Thank
nice. I
you.
also never use it.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Cheers.
Bye.